Welcome back to the show. We're joined today by Russel Horwitz, and we're chatting about systems thinking. So Russell, how as human beings can we change in order to change our thought process about systems thinking?
I think, GV, that it's something very deep in our psyche and our wiring that believes inherently that more is always more.
Okay.
And that's what has to change. So when you open the papers or look on TV and they say, India is growing, they're referring to the size of the economy.
Of course.
4% a year, 5% a year. Whenever something goes up and is more, we say the city's grown. Look at those big buildings now that weren't there last year.
Yes.
We believe it's better.
Yes.
And indeed, we've solved a lot of problems for hundreds of years by going bigger, bigger, bigger. Whenever a population declines, we say, oh my God, we're dying out.
Yes.
Have babies, everybody.
Yes.
Because we've got to keep growing populations.
Of course.
That's our psyche.
Yes.
What needs to change is that we need to realize, and you can see it on this, if you look at this diagram, the world is finite. It's not getting bigger.
Of course.
The economy is a piece of our society. It's not something that has to live for any reason other than to serve us.
True enough.
An economy doing well and people doing badly is not what we want. We need to do what's good for people within the constraints of the environment.
Of course. And it'll affect the economy inevitably.
It will, yes.
Yeah.
So essentially, a lot of people believe that the economy is the big picture.
Okay.
And what's good for the economy is good.
Okay.
But the economy, the world economy has grown to such a point now that the world cannot sustain it.
Okay.
And the vast majority of people don't even take part in what the economy really gives us.
Okay.
They still dirt poor.
Of course.
So we need to realize that growing the economy further and actually striving for growth in every way is only robbing the natural world. And ultimately, if you look at countries where there is no natural world left, you'll find extreme poverty, huge slums, civil unrest, even warfare, even genocide.
Of course.
When you hit the limits, there's limits to this growth. We have to strive for stable everything, not growing anything.
True
We can
enough.
grow certain things and other things have to shrink. But we have to see the limits.
So now one could argue, Russell, that if you're not in a good economic state, you don't have the resources to be able to support society or the environment. So is that true? Like because what we're talking about today is a complete mind shift, right? About looking at the globe as a whole. So now one could easily, because I know that one of the reactions that's coming up for me is, wait a minute, if we don't have the economy, then how do we have the money to actually get to root causes of things?
So let me explain something about the natural world. It doesn't need money.
Okay.
It doesn't need work. It just needs to not be destroyed.
Okay, perfect.
That's all.
Okay.
There's a certain amount of fish in the sea, and we can catch a certain percentage of that sustainably. If we catch more than that, they'll all disappear eventually.
True enough.
We need to catch less than that. It doesn't take money.
And all of this ties into, I think, on a larger scale, eating habits and eating more than we're... And so it also seems that, and I'd like to come down to the individual level, in my house, at our home, what is it that we can be doing within our home that shifts us into this type of a systems thinking?
You know, I think there's two areas where the individual can focus. I'm going to start with what I call the little stuff. It's recycling. It's changing your light bulbs to compact fluorescent. It's keeping them off at night when you're not in the room. It's not running the hot water while you're looking over your shoulder, having a chat to somebody.
Of course.
It's trying to shorten your commute, not flying airplanes more than you absolutely have to, cutting down on red meat. I call those the little stuff because in itself, those things won't save the world.
Of course.
But they allow you to lead, and it does make some difference. The stuff that, the world-saving stuff, is where you as an individual impact more than you, and more people than you.
Okay.
And how do you do that? The way you place your vote. I'm not telling you to vote for any political party, but I am saying that we have to vote for sustainability if we want to have it.
Of course.
Because if we vote for ecologically illiterate politicians, we'll have ecologically illiterate policies.
Of course.
And ultimately, a lot of the solutions can only be a lot of them come from policy. So that's where we have to focus on. We've got to elect the right politicians.
True enough.
Whether it's left wing or right wing, they've got to have sustainable values
Of course.
to be able to lead us.
Of course.
And we all have one vote. Secondly, we've got to, anytime you do advocacy, just by you hosting this TV show, anytime you do that, you're impacting more people. If you have kids, keep in mind, they're watching what you do.
Of course.
You drive a big SUV, they're going to drive a big SUV.
True enough.
So role modeling to our kids, taking them into nature, making them spend a lot of time in parks where there's trees and showing them animals, and a little bit less of the Disneyland perhaps, and more of the nature so that they get to appreciate it. Funding, making donations to charities that do this kind of work, environmental, the World Wildlife Fund, the West Coast Wilderness Committee, they do amazing stuff that preserves the environment. You may not have time, but you may have some extra dollars to give those folks. Anytime you do those kinds of things, you magnify. You're magnifying your values out there. Of course. And that's the stuff that's world changing.
And to add to that, I think that when we explain to children to use less water, or you change the light bulbs, where I find my gap is, and I'll be really honest with you, is I don't explain to my children why. I don't get into the depth of the conversation, because what happens with me is, and probably with many other people, that when you have all these diverse, complex, global issues that people speak about again and again, you get to the point where you think, do they really impact me? Are they real? Because you don't see the symptom. I don't see the symptom in my personal life right now. So what happens to me is, it seems asymptomatic. I don't see the symptom right now of global warming. So therefore, it doesn't impact me. And therefore, I'm not teaching my children that, who are then going to grow up, and they may be turning off lights here and there and using less water, but they may not have concepts of why they're doing that.
You know, Jivi, this is why some say it's a moral problem, because the people, if you live in Canada, the vast majority of the Canadian population has enough money to go buy food from the store and eat. Now in winter, have a look where that food comes from. It's pulled in from countries all over Central America, where there's plenty of starving people, let me tell you.
Of course.
We're the last people to starve, because we can afford to buy their food in this globalized world.
Yes.
And it just comes down to educating yourself and understanding that our impacts, there's somebody further down on the totem pole who is going to fall off a cliff. Even though we're not affected, we will be the last people to be affected.
Of course.
You know? So what can I say? It's just realizing that.
Now, Russel, you talk about this topic with a lot of passion. What I'd like to know is, what was the trigger point for you that you went from just using less water to, you know what, I need to talk to the public about this. I need to start, because you do workshops. I've seen, I've heard some of your systems thinking. I believe it was for the wildlife. I can't remember where it was for.
I do some fundraisers for them.
Yeah, so what was that trigger of you being the average person at home using less water to really taking a stand on this and moving forward?
I'll be absolutely honest. I used to read the papers and read the news about another species gone extinct, and another this and another that. And never mind just the animal world, people as well, and feel very depressed. And one day I said to my wife, I'm tired of feeling depressed. I have to do something. And I need a project.